The other day, Joe Biden had went out to go do the G7 summit, and it says as Biden headed out to rally the world, our biggest vulnerability is ourselves. Basically, as aides to two very different presidents, both of them had sat in G7 summits, and of course, I'm talking about Alyssa Farah and Joanna Maska. Alyssa Farah had worked in the presidency with Trump, and Joanna Maska had worked in the presidency with Obama. So basically, they have two different opinions on how things can go. On how things can go anyway. Basically, they both sat in the G7 summits. They organized press coverage for bilateral meetings with Russia, and they both attended the NATO defense meetings. Um, they both came away with a shared perspective. The rights and freedoms that Americans take for granted each day are precious and also incredibly fragile. And these rights are so fragile, in fact, that they risk crumbling if our nation continues on its current course, where many of us cannot have a civil fucking conversation anymore. But we can't even disagree about the same basic fucking facts. As political appointees of presidents who cannot be more in contrast, politically and stylistically, many would like to say that we're on different teams. One being one being Team Trump, one being Team Obama. White House aides who shaped coverage of very different leaders. Um, Yet both of us have left our experiences. Both have left our experiences with the same conclusion: that our nation is failing by not fucking listening to one another. By working together, we have strength, and that strength is faltering, and a nation divided will fail, perhaps sooner than you fucking think. And this is as important as ever, as President Biden had attended the G7 summit, a gathering of the world's economic powers. In this environment, with all that is going on inside our country, we have to consider what the world thinks of us. When Trump was in office, the world laughed at us because he was a fucking idiot. Um, but world leaders doubt the United States more than ever, and in our discourse and our divisions, they see traits that are hallmarks of less stable, less free places. We have no shortage of opinions about President Biden in our country, but Democrats complain that he should go at it alone in Washington and get things done and not wait to negotiate with the Republicans on infrastructure. Their position is that reform will happen only if one party in a very slim majority asserts its power. For their part, the Republicans complain that Biden is weak and that he needs to do more to stand up to China, and that he won't negotiate with Republicans, and that he is adding to the division. Actually, he's not. The problem isn't President Biden at all. It's us. All of us. We're so divided as a nation that we can't have civil fucking conversations, and we can't agree on basic fucking facts on things that we all saw, like the fucking Capitol insurrection. We don't look at the vulnerabilities of our division, and too often we don't see the other side of further humanity, or that at our core we all want America to be the best that it can be. Um, and America's adversaries are more than happy to take advantage of this division to drive a further wedge between Americans. America's adversaries weaponize our domestic disagreements to turn neighbor against neighbor, Republican against Democrat, and American against American. And that division has so deeply permeated our public policy that even on matters so fundamental to the U.S. interest and future, we can't begin to find fucking common ground. And there are a lot of reasons for both sides to distrust each other. The two people are millennials raised in the shadow of President Bill Clinton and House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Both of us came of age at a time where we learned more about the president's sex life than the substance of global debate. And both of us went to Washington expecting something to be done for our communities, one from Galesburg, Illinois, which faced a vanishing base of manufacturing jobs, and one as a child of immigrants in California seeking freedom. And both of us saw the resistance on both sides. But we can talk to each other, and we can disagree and work together. Somewhere in there, we learned that resistance alone never works for the American people. America must not be a nation divided, nor a nation that retreats to its corners. We are basically a republic with shared values, and we are only as healthy as the least among us. We are only as educated as the least among us, and we are only as housed as the least amongst us. And diversity, vibrancy, and intellectual debate are keys to our fucking strength. We might have different routes to where individual liberty thrives, but one more reliant on the government moving the scales, and one more reliant on the private sector leading the way. But we all want liberty, freedom, justice, and progress for all the people. The existential problems of our time would not be solved on a merely partisan grounds, but they won't be solved by refusing to talk to the other side. Millions of Americans are still unemployed or underemployed from the pandemic. and violence in too many communities goes unsolved and unaddressed in any credible manner, and America's kids have suffered, and we have an education gap in our country, and we are all falling behind the world standards. But as President Biden takes to that world stage as the leader of the free world, our hope is that in the U.S. we reflect on the responsibility that comes with that title, and too often we forget that our democratic republic is fragile. And the minute we stop being able to see the other side of the aisle as Americans with a valid voice in our political debates, and instead as enemies to be stopped in silence, we lose what it is to be Americans. But yeah, because even with a Republican and a Democrat, we could have civilized conversations if they weren't such dumbasses. I haven't really had a civilized conversation with a Republican, but I have had a civilized conversation with an independent and with the Democrat, stuff like that. So basically, these people are saying that yeah, we could work together and we could have a civilized conversation if you're willing to, but I wouldn't hold my breath for having a civilized conversation with a Republican because that's never going to happen. I'm never going to have a civilized conversation with them.